kids. I now have 8, but I took my 7 kids, my wife, in a big yellow school bus, and we traveled across America, going to sites that were pertinent to the history of education in America. So we went to Boston, we went to Dayton, Tennessee, we went to New Harmony, Indiana, where they established a colony, which Robert Owen established a colony which focused on public education. And we interviewed people. The 2 types of people we interviewed were expert witnesses and eyewitnesses. You know, I'm not just a blowhard telling you that the public schools are bad based on my opinion. We interviewed people that really know that the public schools are bad. The expert witnesses, people who have studied them, people like Samuel Blumenfeld, who have studied them for years. And then eyewitnesses, teachers, headmasters, people that work within the system who testify to the fact that the public schools are the worst place for your child to be. And the purpose of our movie is to get people to take their kids out of the public schools.
Well, what you said is just absolutely key, and it's a paradigm shift, because when you read the documents from over 100 years ago where the big banking association says Americans have the highest literacy rate, they're intelligent, they're informed, we've got to take education from people being educated to being trained, basically dog training. And I've had the former head of policy, Department of Education, Charlotte Iserby, and many others on the show. I've read the documents where they planned to attack the family, to break down society, to get rid of morals so that they can replace them with their globalist morals. And your film gets into this, and I mean, this isn't your opinion. This is the fact. This is a diabolical program against our society, and it's been duplicated all over the world. Anywhere these globalists are in control, the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Council of Churches, taking the churches over. This is in private schools as well. As you know, it's just worse in the government indoctrination centers, the public schools, and they use our tax money, our property taxes, to destroy our youth and turn them into these hollow little consumers, and you go through it all. So, yes, it's done a great job. It's been an incredible success, and the more federalization we get, the more dumbed down our children get, and then the more control there is. I was just reading they're now going to standardize and biometrically scan everybody when they take tests to make sure there's no cheating, and it's a federal database to do that. So break down your findings in the film that, you know, I mean, really all tie this together, because this proves that there has been a conspiracy against our children.
Well, people are nostalgic about the schools. They want to go back to the 50s and think it'll be better. But if you go back further than that, you find out there was an agenda early on. So in New Harmony, Indiana, they established this system which was socialist, and the desire was to, and this is, socialists and Marxists do this one important thing. They get the children away from the parents. So they, instead of serving the family, they start to serve the state or the interests of those that the state helps, particularly at that time, the Industrial Revolution. So they saw people as a product. They wanted to detach them from their parents and start to have them serve them. So that was what the Prussian model was based on as well, this militaristic society which wanted to use people for warfare. And now fast forward 200 years to us, when we're living in a world where the public schools really are the indoctrination centers to train people for war. They don't teach them the basic thing. I mean, if you think what the schools are meant to do, that is the one thing they're failing at. But look at all the things that the children are coming out. They're coming out believing in abortion rights and homosexuality and all the things which the parents probably or might not believe in.
Exactly. Even if you're for that or against it, right. Why is the state in there saying we control your kids? I mean, it's like the law now in California where they will inoculate your children if they convince them. Well, that's like saying somebody can have sex with a 12-year-old because the girl was for it. No, under common law and basic law, they're not an adult yet. They can't make that decision. Just because a 12-year-old wants some Jack Daniel's whiskey doesn't mean you as an adult can give it to them because they're not of an age to be able to choose that. So this is the state coming in and really proving that it wants to take the children away from the parents. In fact, you just brought this up, and perhaps by the end of the show, because Aaron Dykes is here, you guys can go grab him. He came to me with Charlotte Iserby's book, Deliberate Dumbing Down, the new edition that came out, and it showed Department of Education documents and reports of where in the U.S. they tell the children, okay, close your eyes, pray to God, ask for candy. And they close their eyes, pray to God, and they don't get candy. And they say, okay, now ask the state, ask government for the candy, close your eyes. And they do, and they go, here, you got candy. The state can give it to you. God's not real. The state is God. We have a great guy who's worked here for a long time, just an incredible IT professional who grew up in Venezuela. And his family ran education down there, a private school that got shut down by Chavez. And he said, I don't want to tell this story on air, no one will believe it. But he said the reason they basically shut down our school was because they came to my parents and said, okay, you pray to God and ask for milk, and they have the children, this is in kindergarten, pray. In the morning when they're hungry in a poor country, they open their eyes, there's no milk, and they go, pray to Chavez. They pray to Chavez, and they all get milk. And I said, no, I believe you. And then later Aaron goes, wait a minute, this is in this book, but in the U.S. it's candy. Because, but I mean, it's so diabolical that this is going on. What Chavez is doing, he got from us.
Absolutely. It really is an American system, and the school bus is a symbol of this mass system to indoctrinate our culture. And our culture, when we talk to people, and you talk to people on the street, so many of them are status-minded. They're completely committed to the state. They completely love the state, and so you're trying to shake them away from that, and that's because they've been educated by the state. Whoever educates is the one that controls the future of our culture. And it's the saddest thing is the majority of conservatives and the majority of Christians in America still use the public schools, ignorant of the fact that it's undermining their own faith, their own culture, their own politics.
And you're turning your children over to them. I mean, I remember articles in mainstream news like it was normal 15 years ago where they were teaching sixth graders about stuff that I didn't even know about as an adult. I mean, things I won't even say on air. Right. And they were taking them to universities in dorm scenarios. And I mean, it's like, it's creepy. It's beyond bizarre that you realize it's a bunch of perverts and weirdos that want our kids, and we just give them to them.
Well, you're statistically more likely to be molested by an employee of a public school than any other profession. That is something that reveals to us that they should not be considered as safe places for your child. You mentioned, you know, some of the stuff that you've heard mentioned to children in the classroom, but also outside the classroom, peer pressure is a significant issue in the lives of children.
Oh yeah, these are modern kids that have been destroyed. You don't want to put your kids in with them.
Yep.
I mean, that's so destructive. I went to public school.
I did,
and my
too.
parents were naive. They're not bad folks, but I can't believe that they allowed this to go on, but it was just the normal thing to do. I mean, the sex, the fighting, and people are like, oh, I bet that was fun. No, it wasn't fun. I'm lucky I survived it.
Right.
I mean,
parents are self-deceived. They're partly deceived by the public schools themselves. Public schools don't advertise the molestations, the shootings, the violence, and all the rest of it on their school website.
The police were dealing drugs in my school?
Right. I'm sure you didn't come home and just list all the things that you.
No, I didn't. That's another thing. I didn't tell them.
Yeah, children don't. So parents don't know what is going on with their child.
You know why? Because I was embarrassed.
Right. So you never bring it up. So parents I think they're self-deceived in part because they want to believe what they're doing is right for their child. And the truth is, it isn't. Even in the best schools, we have a section in this film about the best schools. You know, I'll give you an example of one of the best schools, Columbine. Columbine's a great school in a great area, and we have testimony from one of the fathers who lost his child in Columbine, and he testifies to the fact that it was his fault. He put his child in care of this system, which he knew was evolutionary mindset about the children, allowed promiscuity, allowed all these terrible things going on. So he took accountability for that fact. Do not trust your children to the state.
That's what's so amazing about your film, and everybody's got to see it. It's Indoctrination, available at INFOWARS.com. We'll also give out your website. What's the best place for folks to get it if they want to get it directly from you?
Go to indoctrinationmovie.com.
Great, and also send that URL out to everybody. Aaron just came in. Aaron, come on back in here. I know you're not all dudded up for TV, but come on in here. You host the show sometimes. Come on in here real quick. This is unscripted here, teleprompter free. You ran up to me. It's Aaron. Hey, how you doing? And this is Colin here, Colin Gunn. This is, the lady was head of policy, right. Dad Skull and Bones, grandfather Skull and Bones, a big academic, but she was the head of policy, #2 Department of Education. This was under Reagan, of course.
Yes.
And she gets in there, and it's all like, yeah, we're going to create communism. We're going to merge with the Soviet Union. She's got all the documents in there. I mean, she was there, and we're going to destroy the family. She's got all the documents there. But the book used to be the size of the Dallas phone book. Now it's just 500 pages long or so. And I guess I hadn't read the whole thing before. I thought I had, or I'd forgotten the story. Or perhaps it's just in this new, shorter edition, abridged and updated. But in here, Aaron goes, hey, the story that Max, the IT guy, tells about how horrible Chavez is. Right. He's anti-communist because he grew up, around it. He goes on and describes in here how they put the they say, again, pray to God and ask for candy, and then you don't get the candy, and then pray to the government, you get the candy, and it proves the government can give you the candy. I mean, Aaron, how amazing is it to hear Max tell the story, but he wouldn't come on air because he said folks won't believe it, and then here it is in her book with the government documents. I mean,
yeah, this is something Max saw for himself in recent times. This is something they started back in the 60s when they started taking prayer out of schools.
Right.
I forget the exact date, you probably know.
And they call the family the disease in here?
It's that whole state is God mentality, that you pray to a leader of some kind, that only people can help you. And
we advocate homeschooling for the reason that the state is this competing authority, and you can know what your child is doing at all times, what they're believing and who's with them, what's being taught to them, and that's the great merit of homeschooling. You're with them, and they'll end up like you. I mean, that's what you want for your kids.
Are you kidding? When I was in intermediate school and got off the school bus, from 5th grade to intermediate, there were like kids that had flunked 3-4 times that had mustaches beating me up every day.
Right. You don't. I mean, it's a brutal world out there. And
I remember being on the school bus back home when I was 11 years old, and not knowing what frosting was all around my eyes, like all blurred. I had concussions being beat up, and then not even telling my parents, just going home and going to bed with concussions. Yeah. And I mean, this is what we do to our kids. And the schools just let them beat the hell out of you. And again, then their answer is more police state because your kids are being beat up. No, don't put them in this cesspit that created a culture that's like this.
When I first came to America, there was a photograph on the front of the Waco newspaper of a young African-American man with his hands behind his back being marched into the school. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was a truant. He'd done the wise thing, which was to escape the school. And here's this poor man. I mean, he was a man. He was 17, and he's getting dragged into the school because they hadn't finished with him effectively. He was being told, you need to sit in this classroom and submit to this authority. And I saw at that point, the schools have become like prisons. They've got barbed wire around them. They've got
I want to speak to that. I want to speak to that. Again, this is on page 88. This book also available at INFOWARS.com, the film Indoctrination. Aaron, thanks for coming in, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate you running up with that because, and we've got to get Max on the show. We've got to get him to come in here and talk about this. Okay, continuing, Colin. There's so much more. Tell us who else is in the film and other facets that people have got to see. Because, I mean, you talk about the Columbine dad that's in this. I mean, you really did a lot of work here.
We traveled all across America in this bus. We slept in the bus, and we met all these great people. And the testimony from someone like John Taylor Gatto, and we have a clip of John Taylor Gatto with us. And John Taylor Gatto is important because he's a whistleblower. He's not just an expert, but he was actually there. He was Teacher of the Year in New York City and New York State. This guy knows what he's talking about. And he turned away from the system and condemns the whole system.
Yeah, he discovered it was on purpose.
That's right, right. So he's one of the people in our film that speak to the history and talk about the agenda behind the public school system, how they desire to take control